Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of Slipping Out. In this one we're going to be taking a look at Wave Race 64, which was one of my favourite N64 races. For the time it had amazing graphics and kept me and my friends entertained for hours, even if it did only take about an hour to complete once you were half decent. But that's not the point, even making this video I had a lot of fun playing this game. So let's get going. First of all, in this one we're going to take a look at the watercraft selection screen, and when we zoom the camera in we can take a closer look at the 3D models of the jet skis. Equally then, if we zoom the camera back out we can take a look at the small section of water that the characters ski about in, and when they get too close to the edge of the water where the sky texture is, they just spin around and go the other way. Wave Race 64 was full of wildlife, which you'll see throughout this video, but probably the most popular being the dolphins in Dolphin Park, and if you ever wanted to see one a bit closer than normal, then here you go. The best way I found it was to jump on the back of one and we can even go inside. Now I wasn't expecting to find guts in here, but from the inside you can see how the dolphin is made from 2 parts rather than just the one. As with all of these Slipping Out episodes, one of the main things that I was interested in is what's outside the maps in the places that we can't normally get to by playing the game. Like on this first course, Sunny Beach. What's behind these hills? Now surprisingly, even though we can take the camera over the top of the hills, this isn't the best method for this game. As you can see, and as I've said in previous episodes, because our character isn't within the section of map that the camera now is in, the game won't load up what's behind here, as it doesn't think it needs to. So the best way to overcome this was to basically disable the out of bounds timer and take a ride out to sea. It's not long before we come to the edge of the hills, and as we spin around we can see all the way back into the map. And as you can see, because our character is now behind the hills, the water is now loading up as we ski along. And the great thing is, there is no barrier stopping us from re-entering the course from the outside, it only seems to work one way. And for those of you who want to know, there isn't too much out of the bottom of the course either. What happened? So now, being we've disabled the out of bounds timer, what happens if we keep going? Well, after a minute or two we hit the turn back barrier that automatically flips us around and sends us back towards the course, but if we fly the camera out we can see just about the edge of the water and the skybox. Talking about water, what about the waves? And the wave effect for the time was pretty cool to see, and we can see from this zoomed out view how the waves are only in the location of the player. The rest of the map is pretty still. Now's also a good time to take a look at the crowd, and if I move the camera over, of course they are all just 2D textures like crowds on games were back in the mid-90s. But from here you can see how the texture is repeated over and over to make it look as though there's a large crowd from a distance. Spot the person in the purple top. The lights at the start of each race, where do they go? Well, here it is. They disappear just out of camera shot from the player. Another little interesting point about the lights whilst we're talking about them is that they aren't flat like they seem to be from the normal camera angle. In fact, they are slightly cone shaped, as you can see here, although bear in mind that this camera does stretch the textures too. I was kinda curious to find out why they were building rooftops sticking out the island on the middle of Sunset Bay, and it turns out that these buildings are just what look like house rooftops sticking out the floor. The ones from the other side of the coast do have a bit more to them though, even if it is hidden under the map. Drake Lake gives us a good opportunity to take a look at some fishes without the camera bobbing up and down constantly, and check out the motion blur effects on these 2D fish. As I mentioned previously, there is a lot of wildlife in this game. We even have some ducks that fly off when we get too close, but with Ninja Cam we can get up and have a closer look, even to this dude who seems to be stuck within the rock. Once the ducks have flown away, I always wanted to know where did they go. The only way I could do this was to keep pausing the game because they flew so fast that I couldn't keep up with the camera, so I had to keep pausing and unpausing, moving the camera, and it was quite painstaking, but at least I eventually found out. Okay. And at that point they disappear over the back of the course. One thing that caught my eye on Drake Lake was this duck hunt chap stood at the side of the lake, and I don't ever remember him being there when I used to play this as a kid. Now this is the only time we see him throughout the whole game, or certainly from what I could find, so I'm gonna call him Wally. And if we look carefully at Wally's texture, it is a bit messed up, and there's something next to his dog. So I did a bit of research and pulled his texture file, and to my surprise I found out that he has a duck hunting friend, but he doesn't appear in the texture in the game. The only reason I can think for this is when the game loads the texture, he wasn't included in the correct amount of pixels width-wise to fit in. Okay guys, I'm going to stop talking for a while now and let you enjoy some of the out of bounds footage from a few of the different courses. Check out the little dancing penguins on the edge of Glacier Coast. They seem really happy to be here, tapping the little feet and dancing away, other than maybe this guy who's stuck in the scenery. What is it with the birds on this game and being stuck in the scenery? Before we finish off the video, I just wanted to take a quick look at where the rider goes when he falls off the jet ski, and to do this I had to pause the game and then move the camera underneath the water, and we can see him there, and if I slow the video down we can see what happens. He sort of fades away in the water. So now we've seen him fall off, let's take a look at what happens when he gets back on, and we can see that he respawns quite deep within the water and then makes his way up to the jet ski. Alright guys, we're nearly at the end, but quickly take a look at the end animation. At no point during that animation do we see any crowd or anyone on the beach, but when we spin the camera around, check it out, there is someone stood over on the beach. So just who is our mystery guest? Well, if we take the camera over, which is pretty difficult to do because it does keep moving as the animation moves, but we can see it's actually A. Stewart who in this playthrough lost the championship. Now, I do realise when we come in fourth in the championship, part of the animation shows our character doing this, but I had no idea that even when we are on the podium, one of the other characters is doing that losing animation, even though we never get to see it. Seems like a bit of a waste of time to me, but maybe to the devs it was just easier to code it like that. Still, I think it's kind of cool that I think we've found and seen it here first on Slipping Out anyway, especially as this game's been out for over 20 years. But that is it for episode 3 guys. I really hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I have making it. I've had a lot of fun doing this episode, and I hope you come back and see episode 4, whatever game that may be on. But for now, as always, take care and stay slippy.